We have other breaking news, and this is coming to us from the campaign trail. Anna, I want to talk to you about this. Amy Klobuchar's campaign now confirming to NBC News the senator is going to be flying to Dallas, here to Texas, to join Vice President Biden at his rally tonight. She will suspend her campaign for the presidency and endorse the vice president. Anna, there had been tremendous pressure, people questioning what is your path forward. Increased the pressure even more, I think, last night when you saw Pete Buttigieg, who was ahead of her in votes, certainly in delegates, who decided that the best thing for him to do was step aside. What's the impact here?
I think it's pretty big, actually. I think what you're really starting to see is that this field condensing a bit, which we've been predicting was going to happen, but it was hard to see how long some of these candidates were going to stay in the race. Obviously, Minnesota, a big Super Tuesday state, Amy Klobuchar's hometown state. So her impact of throwing her support behind Joe Biden clearly could have an impact in that state where she was leading in a lot of the polls leading up to Tuesday. I think the other thing that's clear here is you see the consolidation of the moderates and really the enthusiasm around Joe Biden versus Mike Bloomberg. A week or two ago, Mike Bloomberg seemed like he had a lot of momentum behind him, but right now Joe Biden is really cleaning up when it comes to money and also when it comes to some of these endorsements.
Yeah, and Klobuchar's decision comes as we've been waiting. We know that there have been conversations between Pete Buttigieg and the vice president. There was a lot of speculation. Would he do the same thing? Would he endorse the vice president? The word last night was from folks inside his campaign said, he wants to sleep on it, but you wonder what might be next.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Joe Biden said on that phone call that he would like him to stay engaged. Clearly, there is a momentum on the moderate side that they want to coalesce all of the energy possible to stop Bernie Sanders, who is expected to have a big night on Tuesday, but they are trying to stop him from having an overwhelming lead so that there is still a path forward for someone like Joe Biden. The question really, I think, remains, what happens with Pete Buttigieg? What happens with Mike Bloomberg? Do they see a path forward for themselves, or do they say, hey, it's time to actually get behind Joe Biden and put him forward as the best candidate to try to beat Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, I think the obvious question is, where do those voters go, right? Are they all naturally or most of them going to go to the vice president? How much does an endorsement from your candidate influence you? But there's a second part of this, and I'm thinking about Pete Buttigieg in particular. Last year, and I don't have the figure off the top of my head, but he raised tens of millions of dollars. He had incredibly impressive bundlers, particularly for someone who a year ago, by his own admission in his speech last night, his name wasn't even known. People couldn't pronounce his name. So the other question is, where will that big money go? Because we know how far behind Joe Biden is. Obviously, everybody's far behind Michael Bloomberg, but far behind Bernie Sanders, who had an unbelievable fundraising month in February.
Absolutely. I mean, Joe Biden has had a good night. I think it was $10 million since South Carolina overnight. And so I think the question is going to be, can he keep that momentum going? Will that super PAC money, will some of those big donors shift over to him? Because he's going to need it. At the end of the day, people don't like to say this because it is about the voters, but it really is about the money. Will Joe Biden have the ability to be up on air in some of these key states? Will he be able to hire more staff? That's one of the big questions he's been understaffed in a lot of these early states. And so can he bring some of those supporters of potentially Amy Klobuchar's, potentially Pete Buttigieg's and others to coalesce behind him and really have that infrastructure, because that is so important when it comes to actually getting out the vote. In terms of some of these congressional endorsements, how can they translate that into action on the ground?
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.